Howdy, fellow home arcade enthusiasts. It's me, it's Michael B. Today is the first day of CES 2025, and as we know it, it's usually the kickoff point or launching point of the year in home arcade, and we have our first announcement of CES 2025 from our good buddy Glen giving us a full look at the GRS Build-A-Cade FU. I hate that name, but that's what it is. Anyways, Glen gives us an overview of the unit, and I'm going to tell you more about his announcement right after this. So that's right, guys. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the GRS CES announcement 2025, the GRS Build-A-Cade FU, a Glen P joint. But before we get into that, I want to say thank you so much, everybody, for checking out the video. Guys, I always appreciate the support. If this is your first time to the channel, you like what you see, go ahead, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, all that YouTube jazz. So today, Glen had his CES announcement for GRS and the Build-A-Cade FU. Of course, in typical Glen style, it started with a very long intro movie.
3 hours later.
When that finished up, Glen finally got into the foundation of what we were talking about. He gave us a history of his journey in the home arcade space, how he's built multiple products to accentuate arcade controllers, existing home arcade products, and the Build-A-Cade, and then he got to the main event, telling us about the Build-A-Cade FU. So Glen is the first person who will tell you this. He's much too generous in real life and maybe a little bit too generous with information. So we knew a lot of the details of the GRS Build-A-Cade FU going into this video, but let's look at some of the highlight points Glen covered that are new and exciting that you guys might want to look at. Glen did spend a good portion of time going over the actual Build-A-Cade FU prototype unit that he now has set up in his workshop or in his home. He covered off everything you could see about it, what he liked about the unit, what he didn't like about the unit, and what can owners expect. Some of the things that Glen pointed out was the marquee was maybe a little bit too big, so he wanted to raise that area up to give people a better viewing angle of the screen, but otherwise, this is pretty much what the unit's going to look like when it gets to people's homes. Now, Glen was kind enough to share some videos with me as well that he also showed in his presentation. In this video, Glen shows you the mechanized coin door. You're going to be able to press in on the slots to enter in your coin in, and you're also going to be able to put coins in those buttons. Like I said, you will actually be able to put physical coins in this machine. I don't know where the hell Glen got all these quarters. He must just have a roll around with him at all times as a personal protective device, like in wrestling. They punch you with a roll of quarters. But here you can see the quarters going in, and there's the removable coin tray slot, so very cool. We also got to look at the screen rotation in action. It's not mechanized yet, but Glen showed us what it'll work like using his hand. They're switching it to the vertical mode and then going back to horizontal. This will be done with a button on the control panel automatically in future. Another new feature he wanted to show was this pop-out shelf that he has in there. This is pretty familiar with a lot of other multicades. Great place to put your Sinden light guns, other accessories like a keyboard. So it does have a slot you can push-pull out to put different accessories in or whatever you're using. You do get the option of using the GRS Viper with this. I believe it comes with it, but you can also hook up a PC or mini PC and then have a mouse and a keypad in there to use along with it. So here we get a look at what the cab will look like with the Donkey Kong attachment or Nintendo cab attachment. We go around to the back and Glen shows you the key entry that you can get in and adjust different things in the machine. It's going to be 2 separate slots. Down here is the space that Glen has reserved for the PC, and there's your power on and off buttons. So here's an up-close look at the Nintendo cab model with the piece put in. Of course, you got to remember the marquee is going to be a little bit smaller on the final version. We get a good look at the cab. There you can see some USB cables right in the front for you to plug in additional controllers or potentially send in light cab guns. You will also notice where this goes in, the actual T-molding is going to be able to pop out to fit the attachment piece in, which I thought was a cool feature. Glen is going to open up the front here and showcase the space inside. There's the coin mech that we looked at just a little while ago, but also you will see here in the front is going to be space for additional control panels, which we'll cover in just a little bit. So this is a front-on look of the Build-A-Cade FU with the Nintendo panel in front on. You can see Glen in a suit here looking pretty dapper taking this video. I assume it's Glen. That's what it'll look like from the front. Now keep in mind guys, this is only the prototype. And about halfway through his presentation, Glen put up this fact sheet, so we'll just go over this really quickly. This is for the GRS Build-A-Cade FU. Man, I hate that name. I don't get it. Anyways, it's a full-size arcade unit, easy to assemble, like the original Build-A-Cade. The original Build-A-Cade only takes like 20 minutes for most people to put together. For me, it took over an hour because I'm obviously an idiot. Runs Arcade OS. I'm not familiar with that personally, but I hear amazing things about it, including the ability for online multiplayer, so that's very cool. GRS Viper powered, so it will come with the GRS Viper. We covered some of the specs of that last night. A little bit more powerful than a Raspberry Pi 5, actually. Can use PC or other OS, so we talked about possibly using a mini PC, a regular PC, or even putting the Raspberry Pi 5 in it. You don't have to stick with the GRS Viper if you don't want to. You can put another brain in the cabinet, and there's actually a big space in the back for you to do so if you wanted to put a full PC in there. GRS iArcade Ultimate Control controller. Now, I don't necessarily love this controller. I've been pretty open about that, especially like the push button spinner placement and stuff like that. But it is still a really good controller. Glen's parts work really well. I just don't like the layout. But, you know, with a bigger unit, you're going to have more space on the side. That's one of the things I didn't like about the iArcade. And with this, the iArcade, especially on the Player 1, like your joystick is so close to the edge. Here you can see there's a lot more space, so it'll probably be a lot more comfortable. That's what it will come with. And then there's some question on whether or not Glen's going to make additional control panels. We're going to make additional control panels, or maybe other third-party vendors are going to do it. We'll get into that a little later. We've got dual working coin doors, which we watched a video on, screen rotation, which for the 19-inch screen is going to be automated. There's going to be a mechanism. I don't know if it's going to automatically do it through the operating system. I think Glen did cover that, but there's also going to be a button to manually push it. So two options there. Compatible with all GRS HW. I don't know what HW stands for. Hardware, I'm assuming. So all these products here, like the Ikari Warriors joysticks, the Sinden Shotgun, Sinden Target Pro. I don't know why Glen just didn't call it his boomstick. His excellent yoke, which I personally own, and I'm excited to get up and running when I get it on this machine. USB ports with power USB hub. We saw those in the video in the front. That's going to be essential for plugging in your Sinden light guns. Bit pixel or LCD pixel compatible. I'm not a big bit pixel guy, but the LCD pixel compatible with the Multicade is an absolute must. You saw how much of a difference just aesthetically it made for the Act Games Legends Ultimate. That's going to do that for this here. Changeable cabinet shape design. We saw that with the fit-in piece to make the Nintendo cabinet, so that's very cool. HDMI controller, USB port live, hot swappable. Also very cool, lots of options. Then after that, we got a pretty big announcement for people that were complaining about the 19-inch monitor maybe being a little bit small in a full-size unit, or didn't necessarily like the circle for the rotatable monitor, there is going to be an option where we can get a version with a 26-inch Unicon monitor in the FU. You guys know personally, I've been crying about this since day one, the fact that this was an option they took away. Very excited to have a full-size arcade with a giant-ass 26-inch monitor. So then Glen took some time to show us some 3D renders of what the cabinet will look like with the Unicon monitor, the 26-inch monitor taking up most of that space there with a very thin bezel. He didn't really mention in the video, but he did talk about there's still going to be an option to rotate the screen, but it's going to have to be done manually. They're looking at options now, kind of like what AtGames did with their AtGames Legends Ultimate Mini. Maybe you can pop the whole marquee out and turn it, or maybe it's something you got to do like the Unicon Nova Blast. When you build your cabinet, turn it and set it up. Hopefully it won't stay fixed vertical, but it is nice to see that giant monitor in the cabinet. Me personally, I know that's the one I'm going to go for, especially for one I'm going to leave as a multicade. I also like that he's showcasing here some different control panels on the cabinet. He's got one with his Star Wars yoke put there for an example, and then another one on the other side with the Ikari Warriors joystick. What he also wanted to show here was some changes that after getting the prototype he needs to make to the cabinet, or feels he needs to make. As you can see, the marquee area has been made a lot smaller and the cabinet raised up a little bit to give you a better field of view on the screen on the cabinet. I think this is a good change and it's only going to help all the much more. Now, unfortunately, for those of you waiting for a pre-order date or when we could actually buy this, when we're going to be able to get it in our hands, we didn't get that information at this time. Unfortunately, because of the changes Glen needs to make to the prototype, that delayed the process a little bit. So what we do know at this point, Glen's still going to go with crowdfunding, but that can't get started until Glen has the changes in hand and finds out what the final cost is going to be. There's also another wrinkle with the 26-inch monitor. All we know at this time is that the base GRS Build-A-Cade FU with the 19-inch monitor and rotatable screen is going to be less than $1,000, probably coming in at somewhere around $900 or so. So, make sure to budget that if that's the one you want to go with. Now, if you want to go with the new version that Glen is showing off, I call it the Michael B version, the one with the 26-inch screen, that one's going to be a little over $1,000. We don't know what the price is on that. Probably $1,000 to $1,100 is my guess. So, that's what you're looking to spend on that. But we do know all the core components now. We know we're getting one control panel, which is the GRS Ultimate Control Panel. We're getting the Viper and we're getting the cabinet. And then you can opt for the 19-inch automatic rotating screen or the 26-inch Unicon monitor. All I can say is I'm a pretty happy guy. Now, if you haven't seen it yet and you want to watch the GRS unveiling video, I will tell you, you're going to want to jump ahead to about you're going to want to jump ahead to the minus 3606 portion of the live stream, because that's when the video actually starts. Glen has a habit of doing these super long intros. But if you want to watch it and get all the details from the man himself who built it, I'll leave a link down in the video description below so you can go check it out. So anyways, guys, that's the whole announcement from GRS today for CES about the Build-A-Cade FU. Now, with this product, I went a little bit up and down ever since Glen initially announced it. When he first announced it, I was all in. Of course, that excitement got taken back a little bit when we found out they would have to downgrade the 26-inch screen to a 19 to accommodate the rotating and to accommodate the building of the Nintendo-style cab. Now, me personally, I think those are awesome, and I might get a GRS Build-A-Cade FU and do a Nintendo cab at some point. I have always wanted a Donkey Kong cabinet, so that would be a perfect fit for getting one at home. But for keeping a core multicade and doing all the cool shit I wanted to do with it, like everything from fighting games to beat 'em ups to possibly driving games, I really wanted that big screen. So I'm so excited that option was added back in. Let me know in the comments down below, guys. Is this a product you're interested in? Do you need more information about how the crowdfunding is going to work when you're eventually going to get your product? And if you are interested in the 19-inch with the rotating screen, or are you going to go for the big daddy like me and pick up the GRS FU with the 26-inch Unicon? Anyways, guys, thank you so very much for watching. I'll be back with more CES coverage throughout the day. This is Michael B. the Game Genie. I'll talk to you next time.